Well, welcome back, everybody, to Suzuka, the Cammus Simulation GTV3 Championship. Again, apologies for the technical issues that we are suffering tonight. We have not missed a huge amount, thankfully, from the race so far. One of the big moments was this man making a mistake. Not something we actually see all that often, but Carl Felvis, we believe, has been off the road, dropped briefly down to 7th, but then got back ahead of Nicky Taylor pretty quickly, and that has let Elliot Dalton-Ayres rather off the hook. He is back into the top 5 and all over the tail of Josh Martin now without any real threat from behind. One man who does have some threat from behind, though, is Eric Axelsen. And Jack, this is significant for the championship. Joel Lask is on the hunt and looking to the inside.
Yeah, no, I thought there was going to be an opportunity, well, not as much of an opportunity, but a move anyway from Joel Lask onto Eric Axelsen. But just trying to keep the Swede on his toes, I think, maybe trying to put him off as well as they go through the first sector of this circuit. But the BMW, we were suspecting maybe a little bit harsh on its front tyres, but actually towards the latter end of this race, Andy, seems to be pushing on quite strong as Scott Bugner's disappearing at the road, and Joel Lask is getting a little bit quicker as well, or maybe Eric Axelsen is getting a little bit slower. We're not 100% sure, but all we do know is there seems to be a fight.
Yeah, Joel will have a little less weight on board because he didn't score quite as well as Eric a week ago, but it will be minimal. There's not a huge difference in it. So perhaps Joel has just been nursing those tyres a little bit more. Not that much, though, because all 3 of these have pulled 6 seconds clear of Josh Martin in 4th. Of course, that gap going out slightly after Carl Felvis had his moment. Josh Martin then is, as I said, half a second ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, with Carl Felvis doing his best to try and reel them back in again as we get into the closing stages now. 5 minutes to go, 3/4 of the way through the race, and the battle for second is raging on. And as I said, this is of significance because Axelsen is 5 points behind Joel Lask in the championship right now. If they finish where they are now, Eric will take 2 of those 5 points out of him. But of course, Scott Bugner, who is 7 off the championship lead, would be taking 5 points out of Bugner, and that's before we start calculating fastest lap. So we thought it was tight coming into tonight, Jack, but if we were to throw the checkered flag now, it would be even closer.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know about you, Andy, but at this championship, I feel like it hasn't been Eric Axelsen's, if that makes sense. I feel like all we've really spoken about in terms of Eric is how he was slightly underperforming, consistently underperforming. I remember, I think it was at Bahrain, he was outbraking himself. Istanbul, he was certainly outbraking himself. And all of a sudden, we're going into the sharp end, the business end, and he is right in the thick of it. And I know he's got a few race victories to his name, but I felt like it's almost under the radar, not the way he's been winning championships in the past.
Yeah, you're right, actually. I mean, I would say a similar thing of the touring cars last season, where Eric only won twice all season, twice across 16 races. Eric Axelsen a winner in the touring cars, whereas if you compare that to things like the MX-5s, he had 4 victories in that championship. In the touring car hybrids, he had, I think, 4 victories as well. So he's not been winning with the same sort of consistency that we're used to seeing. I think what saved him is that everyone's had a touch of inconsistency, really. Even championship leader Joel Lask has finished outside of the top 5 on 4 occasions, which is not normal, really, when you look at VRRC championships of the past. So I think everyone has been struggling is not the word, because actually the reason for it, and Jack, we've documented this a few times this season, it's that everyone is just so much closer in performance now. So gone are the days when one driver would dominate or 2 drivers would do the bulk of winning over the season. These days, if you are off even by a couple of tenths, you're going to struggle to get onto the podium, and that really goes to show the strength of driver that we have on the grid these days.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's also, you know, if you have a spin or something like that, if you have a spin early on in the season, maybe in the touring cars or in seasons gone by, you think, oh, it's okay, you got to drop rounds, you can race back from a reverse grid and everything like that, because you just expect the front runners to get to the front, but it's just not that easy anymore. And I think it was Monza where the HFT boys really struggled, i.e. Nicky and Kyle, because I think they got disqualified from qualifying and had to start from the pits and everything in race 1, and all of a sudden they haven't been able to get back in the championship fight because everybody else has been so good and consistent. Oliver Gibson and Reece Bell are 2 drivers that epitomise that improvement in the championship in the field as well. And as they go through 130R, Reece Bell, side by side with Oliver Gibson, holds on to that 9th place.
But yeah, they didn't just go through 130R. They went through it side by side, almost leaning on each other, and both came out the other side. And now another round the outside move by Oliver Gibson, and he's back into 9th. That was some spectacular driving, and again, shows that strength in depth. It's not just the drivers at the front who are capable of putting on some brilliant wheel-to-wheel action. Oliver Gibson again fends off Reece into the first corner. Bell has a little look at the inside at turn 2, but isn't ultimately quite close enough to make that work, but that was some terrific scrapping between the two of them. I can count on the fingers of one hand. In fact, it's probably 1 or 2 times only that I've seen cars go side by side at that speed through 130R and both make it through without any contact, without someone disappearing 3 miles off the road and using all of the tarmac runoff area to avoid contact. That was good.
Yeah, no, very impressive from those two, and as I said, epitomises the fact that the strength of the field has got a lot better, because in days gone past, if we're watching a fight for 10th place and they go through side by side through 130R, you just know both of them aren't going to come out at the end of it. There's going to be some pig crash, and then there's going to be some stewards' inquiries and all this, that, and the other. But even from the stewards' inquiries perspective, obviously, we haven't heard that there's been that many complaints in terms of driver standards either. I mean, the incidents that we have had have just been innocent mistakes, or the fact that, you know, sometimes it's just these cars are hard to drive, and sometimes you miss your braking zone, and the tyres get degraded, and all that sort of thing. So I think the driving standards, from my perspective, from what I've seen, have been really good as well in this championship. So I've been very impressed.
I would agree with that, and I would argue, actually, that that is because the racing has not been quite as frenetic. Drivers have had to really think about their overtakes. When you've got a form of racing... Oh, Joel Lask with a big bit of power on oversteer there out of the chicane. When you get the MX-5 style racing, where they're all on top of each other for the whole 20 minutes, you're inevitably going to end up with more contact, whereas here, they really have to think about their overtakes, and yeah, 9 times out of 10, you're right, it has been clean. This is a significant battle then for 4th place, because Elliot Dalton-Ayres has been stuck underneath the rear wing of Josh Martin's Corvette for most of the race, but he has now been re-caught again by a fired up and determined Kyle Felvers. Fired up and determined because he was ahead of these two before he had that mystery off a little bit earlier in the race. We've just started the final lap, Jack. Which way do you think this one's going to go?
Oh, well, if Josh Martin keeps chucking it off the circuit like that, I would say Elliot Dalton-Ayres, but he's probably chucked it off in the best possible area of the circuit, because it's really hard for Elliot to actually take any kind of advantage of that. And you saw it there. He had to slam the brakes on, couldn't go round Josh Martin, so he had to slow himself up, and as a consequence, Kyle Felvers has caught them back up. I don't know. I think we've seen Kyle Felvers get fired up before. His body language in the car looks fairly keen and aggressive as also. I would say Kyle's going to get one of them. I can't say which one's going to finish ahead, though.
Well, if he's clever, he might get both of them. Oh, that's Alec Iyengar off in the gravel. I think that is at Degner 1, but he's that far off the track, I can't actually tell. He's just at some generic beach in Japan, but he will hopefully get going once more. Yeah, if Felvers plays his cards right here, and if Dalton-Ayres has another stab at getting past Josh Martin, it might open the door for the Porsche to get past both of them. Let's see what happens, presumably, through the final couple of corners. That's where it's likely to kick off. For Scott Bugner, though, it looks as though a third race victory of the season is in the offing, and yet again it will come from pole position in race 1. 7 times now this will have happened this season, and despite the initial challenge from Axelsen into the first corner, it looks as though the LB Motorsport driver is going to take a race victory, and a crucial one at that, to close to within 1 or 2 points now of the championship lead with 3 races to go. Scott Bugner victorious for the 3rd time this season. 2nd goes to Eric Axelsen. 3rd place Joel Lask. Josh Martin will hang on to 4th place, but it will be a bit of a drag race to the line for 5th, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres really needs to try and keep the Porsche behind him. The timing line comes up now, and Dalton-Ayres does just hang on despite that late charge from Felvers, and that could prove to be significant. Nicky Taylor 7th, Oliver Gibson a tad disappointed, I'd have thought, in 8th, ahead of Reece Bell in 9th, who really dropped back there towards the end. I suspect that something happened between those two after the really good battle they had earlier on. Alec Iyengar, meanwhile, will stay inside the top 10 despite that last lap gravelly excursion, but that was another really exciting finish to the race, and Scott Bugner, Jack, has just taken his 3rd victory of the season, perhaps the most significant.
Yeah, going to be very important for Scott Bugner, that one, and we look forward to hearing from him in a couple of minutes' time. But first of all, as we watch Ben Jemison come across the line to take 12th place, we're going to cut to a very short advert break so we can have a proper chat with our podium sitters.
Welcome back, everybody. Another intriguing round of the Cammus Simulation GTV3 Championship here at the VRRC has just been concluded, and it has tightened up the championship even more. We are joined now by our top three drivers from that first race, and it's another lights to flag victory for Scott Bugner, his third of the season, and once again keeping this run of lights to flag victories alive. All 7 of our opening races of the evening this season have gone the same way, and it's Scott who gets on the top step this time. Beyond the first corner, Scott, that looked like pretty plain sailing, but honestly, how concerned were you when Eric got up the inside into that first turn?
I feel like me and Eric have come together a few times, so I tried to leave him as much room as I could, and then I saw him break, and I thought, no, that's fair enough to him. So, yeah, once I got out in front, it was just controlling the tyres, really, and, just edging it where I knew I was a bit quicker, and really truthfully, just going from there. And it sort of, it was still hard, but it was not too bad.
Yeah, and from that point on, really, you did seem to just build a little bit of a cushion, manage the tyres a little bit better maybe than the rest. That was a really important victory as well, wasn't it? Because that is going to tighten the championship up even further. You weren't that far back to start with, but at this stage, every point counts.
Absolutely, and every time I say it's all guns blazing in race 2, I end up getting spun round. So I'm going to say I'm going cautious and see what happens. But yeah, we know how hard this track is to overtake. So especially through sector 1, it's going to be really tight, and it's going to be interesting to see where people go for the moves to actually coming through the field.
Indeed, and it's going to be interesting to see where you go for those moves as well, Scott. We'll leave you to it. Best of luck for that second race, and congrats on that third victory.
Cheers, Andy. Thank you.
Scott Bugner then victorious, as he said, had that early battle with Eric Axelsen though, and we can get his side of that story now. He's alongside Jack.
Yes, Eric, congratulations on the second place, but it looked like it was hard fought towards the end there against the third place competitor, Joel Lask.
Scott is just so fast, so kind of I realized like halfway through I'm not like going to catch him, and I had Joel breathing down my neck, so I had to worry about that. Luckily, this track is quite narrow and the cars are wide. It's really hard to overtake.
Do you feel somewhat relieved though that it was you? I mean, you 3 were in the championship running, but there was 4 going into tonight with Elliot Daltonez. He was all the way down in I think it was about 6th or 7th position. Do you feel like that's one more name clocked off, and you only have to beat the 2 BMWs, or do you think Elliot's potentially going to come back?
Well, he's starting, ahead of us in race 2, so we cannot count him out. But yeah, the chances are, it's only 3 races left, so yeah, the chances are dropping off,
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Eric, on the second place. Really well raced and well driven. And maybe, you never know, we'll speak to you after race 2.
Thank you, Jack.
Excellent stuff. And finally, third place in that race, Joel Lask. Well, Joel, you went into that leading the championship. We think you will still be leading, but perhaps only by 1 or 2 points now. We're enjoying this, but is the pressure perhaps now starting to show for all 4 of you, really? This is so tight.
Yeah, that was just a little bit. That was pretty tight with Eric there. I could see it with him, but I just couldn't overtake him, which was a problem. There was areas where I was a little bit quicker, areas where he was quicker. So, yeah, it's just we'll have to see what plays out in race 2, to be fair, and we'll go from there.
Race 2 is only about 30 seconds away, so Joel, will leave you to it. But congratulations again on the podium. Best of luck for race 2.
Thank you, Andy. Take it easy.
So they are your top 3 finishers from an intriguing opening race, but that, Jack, I think was the aperitif. We're now moving into the main course. These reverse grid races at this stage of the championship, with the points as close as they can be. Every position you can gain now in this race is going to be crucial, and of course they're all starting together at the back of the field, the championship front runners. I predict a few fireworks here. This could be a really, really significant race in the championship.
I'm still stuck on the fact you used the word aperitif. Are you sure you're from the Wirral?
Well, born in Chester, don't you know? So,
well, there we go. That explains. Yeah, well, Paul O'Neill would be disappointed in you, having said that. But yeah, I'll let you take the start of the race away while I get my head around that.
Paul O'Neill is frequently disappointed with me. It's a fact of life these days. Here we go then. Red lights are on. Second race of the night at Suzuka, bursting into life. And Kenny Press it is who starts on pole position. The other Corvette, the yellow and white one of Ben Jemison, I think that was, getting a really good start as as well, leapfrogging the BMW of Sam Zero, who fights back up the inside. Now keep your fingers crossed, everyone. Kyle Felvers was out wide. He will lose a little bit of ground as a result, and Axelsen has burst through. Looks so Eric Axelsen and Elliot Dalton-Ayres both having good starts. They're already making some progress, and look at Dalton-Ayres right round the outside. He is side by side with one of his big title rivals and gets the better for the now of Eric Axelsen. Elliot Dalton-Ayres needs to get a move on here. He's got a few cars between himself and the BMWs, and he will be feeling like a podium at the very least is on the cards.
Yeah, racecraft isn't all about pace, is it? It's about getting your car in the right position at the right time. That's exactly what he did, just to get ahead of Eric Axelsen. And also the two HFT drivers of Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers, of course, who are muscling out the Swedish assassin and demoting him further down the order. But just ahead of them, Sam Zero, Elliot Dalton-Ayres going side by side and into the hairpin. Is going to be last to the late breakers. Dalton-Ayres on the outside. It's going to be difficult to get that drive, but he's absolutely desperate to try and go through 200R in the lead of this little battle, because he doesn't want those Porsches clampering at the heels.
That is the first time in 28 years on this planet that I realised that corner has a name beyond the hairpin. So you've taught me something tonight, Jack. It is a great place to go side by side, though, as we've said. And Elliot Dalton-Ayres proving that point. He's put another car now between himself and his title rivals. This has been a great first lap for him, because right now he's got Sam Zero, Nicky Taylor, and Kyle Felvers between himself and Axelsen, Bugner and Lask. The latter two really not making much progress, and of course those two Porsches are going to be particularly difficult to find a way past for the likes of Axelsen, Lask and Bugner, because we know how quick they are. So Elliot Dalton-Ayres right now in good shape, I would say, to try and score some points back. They all concertina together through the hairpin round the outside of Reese. Bell there has just gone one of the Beamers. That was Joel Lask, and he's now up to 11th.
Well, yeah, to be fair, we saw the Beamers go through 130R, which I always thought was called 150R, so I've learned something tonight as well. And they were about 30 yards off the track, to be honest, so no wonder they managed to get the speed on them. The BMW of Sam Zero, getting overtaken here by Nicky Taylor, but Kyle Felvers not getting through as easily until, Sam Zero fell off the circuit. What's happened there?
That is Sam Zero off the grass into Josh Martin. It just wasn't meant to be for Josh this season, was it? That was absolutely nothing to do with him. Wrong place, wrong time, and the Mean Green Racing Machine, I'm afraid, is not really going to be doing much more racing in this one, because he's dropped a long way back off the road. Now, I did see in the distance, first of all, Kenny Press is off the road, and that is through the long left-hander at the top of the circuit, through Dunlop, and he is going no further either for the time being. But I did spot Nicky Taylor looking up the inside of Sam Zero into turn 2. Now, I couldn't see from that camera angle if they made contact, but Nicky had a big slide, and the next thing you know, off the road went the BMW up the inside of Eric Axelsen. There, though, goes Joel Lask. So whilst we see an attempt at an overtake, in fact, a successful overtake for Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers, the real significant action happening behind them.
Yeah, well, Joel was saying that he was quick enough to hold on to Eric Axelsen, but he wasn't quick enough to overtake him. And as a consequence, Eric has actually just gone back ahead of the two BMWs, who I think may have swapped. No, they haven't, have they? So it's still Joel to try and attack Eric Axelsen and Scott Bugner. Remember, we're not expecting them to work together as teammates. They're not necessarily as close as the HFT boys. They will race each other wheel to wheel. So as Kyle Felvers lines up an attack on Nicky Taylor through 130R, it's not going to happen this time round, but you never know, into the chicane. Reese Bell flying off the circuit there, trying to carry as much speed as possible. It is a little bit too hectic, and through goes Ben Jemison, deciding that the traditional circuit that we're using is not good enough, and he wants to take the other chicane.
And I think we've had Paul Laramie's in the pit lane. Paul Laramie is in the pit lane from the lead of the race. So Oliver Gibson has now gone through. And I'm not going to tell you what Lewis Edwards just said about Paul Laramie in our Discord chat, because the curse of the broadcaster would start to be a phrase we'd have to start using. And that was someone else sideways. That's Axelsen. That is Eric Axelsen off at the first corner. What on earth happened there? That is big news for the championship. He will drop to the tail end of the top 10. It's hard to imagine he did that by himself, Jack. We do occasionally see a mistake out of Eric, but what on earth is going on to those green Corvettes?
I'm not sure. There's not much racing going on, as you said before, but I can guarantee you they're feeling mean, and they're probably rather green right now. It's not very happy behind the wheels of those Corvettes, but hopefully we'll see Eric fight back a little bit as he catches up to the likes of Ethan Hill. But that is massive in the championship, and I tell you, he'll be very happy. Oh, where is Joel going? That's a good question. That's asked in our ears by Lewis Edwards, and all of a sudden Joel drops behind Scott Bugner, but he was drifting on the grass on the inside of the circuit, Andy.
Yes, the absurdity of what's going on in this race right now is reaching new levels. I have no idea, A, how Joel got there, B, how he didn't spin, and C, how he didn't career into his teammate as he rejoined the trap, because that could easily have gone even worse than it did. And somehow they've gained places out of all of this, because they're now 6th and 7th as they stand. They're some way behind Dalton Ayres, but of course they're outscoring Eric Axelsen, who is a few seconds but several places behind those two. This, all things considered, could have been a lot worse for LV Motorsport, and I'm interested now to see, Jack, whether those two do choose to battle each other. Bugner, of course, back ahead of Lask, but they're so close in the championship. Do they work together to move forward, or do they fight it out over that 6th place?
Oh, goodness knows, to be honest. But you're right, this race has been absolutely absurd. And just before Lewis Edwards put in our Discord that he was worried about he disconnected, I went and checked the YouTube to check that was still going, because I was wondering whether he was just lagging out as well, having a BMW just in the middle of the circuit. But shocking stuff, really, all around. But I tell you what, who's going to be very happy after a pretty poor race one from his perspective. Elliot Dalton Ayres, watching him right now, trying to hunt down one of the BMWs in A-Lock Irongar. Oliver Gibson up the road. He's quicker than those two drivers, is Elliot. He may not be the fastest today, but he's in the right place at the right time. He's got a little bit of a headache approaching rather quickly, but if he can get ahead of A-Lock Irongar, maybe the headache can just, a bit of a paracetamol, maybe take a break for a couple of minutes, and then he'll be able to get onto the back of Oliver Gibson.
Absolutely. We've said this time and time again. You do not need to be the fastest driver in the fastest car to win a championship. I have been proof of that in the past. Your talent sometimes can be superseded by a bit of good fortune and smart racecraft, and that is something we've seen out of Elliot Dalton Ayres all season long. That Ford GT has been very circuit specific. There are some places it excels, there are some places where he's sort of hanging on for dear life. Suzuka, you feel, has been in the latter of those two categories, and yet here he is on course maybe for a podium. Could, arguably should, go a bit further up the road. If he can get past A-Lock Irongar, a race win might still be on the cards, and he could well outscore his other championship rivals. We still, though, have 2/3 of this race to go, so I'm counting no chickens just yet, but certainly so far so good for Elliot. Can he find a way past Irongar, though? If he can, Jack, I do think the victory could be on.
Yeah, I think that's got to be his focus, and we've seen him flashing the lights and everything like that as well. And just to sort of reiterate on your point about it's not always just being the fastest at every single circuit. I mean, Colin Turkington, one of the most successful, if not the most successful touring car drivers of all time in the BTCC anyway, he's epitomizes that one. He turns up to certain circuits with loads of weight on the car to a circuit that's not suited to the rear-wheel drive BMW or something like that, but he can still pick out top 6 finishes and grind out those results, whereas Ash Sutton in his earlier days potentially would win 3 races in a row and then be nowhere for 5 races. And that's the sort of thing that you don't want necessarily. And as Elliot Dalton has looked up the inside, he's been grinding out those positions. He's been exactly where you need to be. But now he needs to show his mettle and actually get past, get the job done on A-Lock Irongar and prove he's a championship contender.
Absolutely. To continue the touring car line of thinking there was this bloke called Jason Plato who won an awful lot of touring car races.
Wow.
Didn't necessarily win that many championships. Winning races is one way to win a championship, but there's more than one way to skin that particular cat, that's for sure. Elliot Dalton Ayres wanting to try and find a way past A-Lock Irongar. Here, Nicky Taylor out wide. Now that will allow Carl Felvers through, but it also allows Scott Bugner through, and maybe Joel Lask as well. That was significant. So a mistake there from Nicky Taylor. He has been fighting the balance of that Porsche all season long, and yet again it just broke out from underneath him. It lost him places, but significantly allowed the 2 LB Motorsport BMWs through as well.
Yeah, and I think Carl Felvers won't be very happy, the fact that he now looks in his rearview mirror, but the 2 BMWs going side by side nearly there. That was going to be holding each other up just slightly. A-Lock Irongar is definitely a cork in the bottle here, isn't he, Andy? I mean, I'm not saying that Elliot Dalton Ayres would streak away by any means, but it's very difficult to get past that, quite frankly, massive BMW, isn't it? Even if you are in an equally massive, well, especially if you are in an equally massive Ford GT.
Now, I was about to say, before race 1 started, just as we had our first internet issues, I was about to say that A-Lock could be a candidate for the feel-good story of this week, because we really do seem to have one every week at the moment, with a driver getting a podium who we're not used to seeing on the podium. He qualified reasonably well, and I had a feeling that he might be a factor before the night was over. Well, he certainly is going to be a factor, isn't he? Because he is going to fight tooth and nail for this podium, has not had one with us, to my knowledge, certainly not this season, and he won't really care about about the championship contenders queuing up behind him. He wants a good result for himself, and you can see how much he wants it because he drives down the pit wall, fending into turn 1, and forces Dalton Ayres the long way round. This is really risky stuff from Elliot Dalton Ayres. Does he commit to it? Yes, he does! Wow. Dalton Ayres, with a sublime move around the outside, is into second place, and will now set sail after the leader. Now, Alec Iyengar holds on to third. That is again beneficial for Elliot, because there's every chance now that he can gap those cars behind. That was a crucial move, a risky one, Jack, but worth it.
Yeah, and the only reason that Elliot Dalton Ayres was able to even attempt that move was because A-Lock just got a little bit squirrely on the exit of 130R, and that allowed Elliot to get a little bit more momentum. A-Lock then outbroke himself into the final chicane. He was too narrow on the way in, and it just all got a little bit messy, but fair play to Elliot Dalton Ayres for flying around the outside, trusting that Iyengar wasn't going to be too late on the brakes and fly into the side of him. So, yeah, big props to Elliot Dalton Ayres, but look at the gap that he's already got on him. As it looks like, oh, that's one of the LB Motorsport drivers. It's Scott Bugner, a race 1 winner, of course, up the inside of Kyle Felvis. A-Lock gets a little bit of a break as they go through 200R side by side.
That was a really aggressive move, but it might not work. He's on the outside through the right-hander. That will give him the inside for Spoon if he can hang there, but Felvis will try and close the door. They almost make contact, and if there's one thing that Bugner can't afford, it's contact that leads to a penalty. He has got up the inside, though, into the second part of Spoon. Felvis is still there, just hanging on tenaciously on the outside line. The Beamer goes through, but now with a slipstream up the hill towards 130R, Carl Felvis may try and come back at him. He's always pushing him up the hill, and all the while has Joel Lask filling his mirrors as well. Through the quick left-hander, dab on the brakes, use the curb to rotate the car, and now pick your braking point into the chicane. They can't even see the chicane. They're that closely bunched up, and there is inevitable contact. Felvis into the back of Bugner. Lask up the inside of Felvis as well. Somehow they're all still there coming out the other side, but look at the time that they've lost to Dalton Ayres and Iyengar.
I've absolutely no idea how Kyle Felvis didn't get turned around in that one. Joel Lask was crawling all over the back of his rear axle, wasn't he? As Lask goes for that outside move, we saw Dalton Ayres do it a lap ago, but Felvis has a lot more pace in that Porsche than A-Lock had in that BMW earlier on, so he holds on to 5th position. Yeah, fair play. They all got a little bit too close for comfort, and maybe if that happened in another lap, there would be a little bit too much contact, but fair play to the car control from all of those drivers. Well done to Scott Bugner for making that move stick, and Carl Felvis for giving them that racing respect and the racing room that they needed.
And this is why I always say that this is the part of the championship I love the most, because any other day we'd still be getting excited about this, don't worry, because it is good racing between good drivers, but every position gained or lost by those top 4 in the championship has massive championship implications. There is every chance that this season will be decided by 1 or 2 points, and the driver that wins or loses will look back at moments like that as perhaps the moment that they won or lost the championship. And for Scott Bugner, that lovely bit of overtaking on Carl Felvis has gained him 1 more place. It's gained him another couple of championship points, and with still 7 minutes to go, he could make further progress. A reminder that Oliver Gibson leads the way, by the way. He is 3.4 seconds clear of Elliot Dalton Ayres, who is not really catching him all that quickly, but Elliot is at least solidifying 2nd place. Alec Iyengar still 3rd, and I have been reminded by the VRRC Oracle himself, Lewis Edwards, that he has had a podium back in the touring cars at Portimao, but he would very much like another one, so he is not going to move out of the way here, no matter how aggressive and feisty Scott Bugner is behind him.
I genuinely can't remember which championship of the touring cars we went to Portimao, let alone who got a podium. So, yeah, fair play to Lewis in the chat. Just while it's it's not calmed down whatsoever, actually, has it? Because I'll put my thoughts to one side as Scott Bugner, I think, is doing everything he can to get past Alec Iyengar, who still has that 3rd place in his pocket for the time being. But here it goes. The 2 BMWs going side by side, but Scott Bugner has the inside, and you can only think this is going to finish one way, and that's for Scott Bugner.
Yes, it has, and Felvis couldn't quite wriggle through the gap, could he there? So it is Bugner up into 3rd. Again, that's another couple of championship points being scored. Of course, all of the drivers dropped their worst week for the season as well, and Lask, Axelson, Bugner and Dalton Ayres all dropping roughly the same amount of points, and they are all likely to exceed that point score tonight, which means that hopefully this will not affect the drop score situation, although actually put a pin in that because Axelson's not having a great race, is he? Meanwhile, Lask up the inside of Carl Felvis, and that is for 5th position, and Carl, I think, now just starting to struggle again with the balance of that Porsche, having confidently predicted at the start of the night, Jack, that the Porsche would be good on its tyres. I suspect maybe the opposite is true.
Well, maybe, but maybe there's a little bit of over-driving as well. Maybe there's just a few too many mistakes in there. We We saw a lot of sliding from Nicky Taylor. We saw quite a bit of sliding from Carl Felvers, as well as Joel Lask goes side by side with Alok Iyengar. Scott Bugner's already streaked away. Alok Iyengar's going round. He's going into the wall. No, he's not. Is he going into Nicky Taylor? No, thank goodness.
Yes, that was very close to disaster, but what a shame for Iyengar. Even if the podium was perhaps slipping out of his reach, he could still have had a really solid top 5 or 6. As it is, he will drop out of it. In fact, he's headed back to the pit lane, so Iyengar out of the race, joins John Jones on the retirements list, and everything is significant. Remember, I said this earlier. That gains 1 position for Eric Axelsen, who was 10th. He is now 9th, and he's caught Ethan Hill. So Axelsen could finish 8th here. In fact, here he is looking to the outside of Ethan towards the 130R. Surely he's not going to try that, although in a way he's nothing to lose. Ethan Hill fends him off. Ethan had some issues, I'm guessing, of a technical variety in race 1, which meant that he finished right, or didn't finish at all in the first race. And he's now desperately trying to hang on to this 8th place, which he does for now in this contest.
Oh.
And around goes Axelsen again. It's okay because it's his teammate Josh Martin behind. Josh has probably got another drama of his own just looking around the corner, so Axelsen may get back into 9th place. In fact, Ethan Hill, I think, is dropping back as a result of that too. So Josh Martin goes 8th, Ethan Hill 9th, and Eric Axelsen 10th. What a bizarre night for the Green Corvettes.
I was going to say, that's a bizarre spin from Eric Axelsen, wasn't it? Absolutely no idea what caused it, as we cut back to Carl Felvers getting a little bit loose and offline, I would say, there, Andy, don't you think? He's almost holding off his teammate there as Joel Lask just tries to streak away. But yes, I mean, Eric Axelsen, that was weird, wasn't it? There's no way around it. He just sort of got up to the back of Ethan Hill. I'm not sure if Ethan maybe screwed up the exit of the chicane and Eric wasn't expecting it, but yeah, very uncharacteristic.
Well, of course, lots of weight over the front of that Corvette as well, although they are mid-engine these days, I think, aren't they, Corvettes? But still, there is some weight over the front of that car, and when you make that frontal contact, the car suddenly decelerates, and you can see it pivot around in that way, which I just think is what happened there, plus a little bit of a funny bounce over the curb. Either way, he is 10th, and Josh Martin, having gone past Ethan Hill, is perhaps not going to be that likely to drop back and give that position away to Eric. I'll have to work out whether this now could become a drop score for Axelsen. He was previously dropping 25 points, scored Nicky Taylor off the road, Jack. That was another odd one, and again, that Porsche just doesn't look fun to drive tonight, does it?
No, I thought Carl Felvers was giving Nicky some drifting lessons there through Spoon. It was a bit of an odd one, wasn't it? But yeah, Nicky ends up coming back on behind Reece Bell, who's having another good evening to his name, finishing in 6th position by the looks of it. We do have to think a driver of the round as well, Andy, and obviously we'll be chatting about it in our Discord chat, but please do give us your opinions in the YouTube chat. As I said, I do apologise that we didn't see a lot of race 1, but you didn't miss much apart from Carl Felvers falling off the circuit somehow. We still don't know how, and rejoining in 6th position, but there's been a few strong contenders. Scott Bugner's up there for winning race 1, qualifying on pole, and getting into 3rd place, obviously. Oliver Gibson, although we haven't seen him much in race 2, he's led very well and kept a consistent amount of pace. And there's been a few exciting drivers in amongst it as well. I mean, that battle between Alok Iyengar, Scott Bugner, Joel Lask, Carl Felvers, and everybody else on the circuit was equally entertaining. So, yeah, do let us know what your opinion is in the chat.
Indeed so. Now, I am not yet giving this victory to Oliver Gibson, by the way, because remember I said he was 2.8 seconds or so, in fact it might have been 3.8 seconds up the road from Elliott Dalton-Ayres. Well, he isn't anymore. 1.7 is the gap, and we've got time for 2 more laps. Well, a lap and a half now, I suppose, as we head towards the hairpin. So Oliver Gibson needs to keep concentration here. He can't afford any mistakes, because Dalton-Ayres is taking some time out of them, and of course Scott Bugner is catching the pair of them. So that is significant for the championship. Both of them wanting the victory, but more than that, both of them wanting to beat each other. Oliver Gibson, though, will be very much hoping that they do start fighting each other. That might just give him enough breathing room to hold on to this. We've got just over a lap to go, and Elliott Dalton-Ayres on this particular lap not really gaining on the leader. Scott Bugner, though, is charging after Dalton-Ayres. Been a really good drive this from Scott Bugner. Didn't make a lot of early progress, but he did start to then pick the pace up. Remember, he said that he was going to be a bit more patient in this race. That so far has worked.
Yeah, when he said that he was going to be patient, I was slightly disappointed, to be honest, Andy. And it's nice to see that although he has been patient, it has been still very exciting indeed. And just goes to show you don't need to go all out constantly in motorsport. Even a 20-minute race, which is comparatively short compared to most forms of motorsport, especially in these cars, you can still have the patience while also making consistent and decisive moves. So, yeah, Scott Bugner's done a really, really good job in not only race 1, but race 2 as well. And that is, like Andy just said, the smaller gap that we're watching now is actually the fight between second and third rather than first and second. And on the last lap alone, Scott Bugner, 155.7, which was 7-8 tenths quicker than Elliot Dalton-Ayres with a 156.5.
Yes, and Dalton Ayres was about half a second quicker than Oliver Gibson, so he might get to within a second by the flag, but I suspect by that point he'll be rather distracted by what's happening behind him, because look at the way Bugner in that first sector has reeled in the Ford GT, the part of the circuit where you would expect the BMW to be struggling on front tyres, and that is absolutely not the case. Through the Degners they go, and this is of huge championship importance now. It may be for second place in the race, but it could be for the championship lead heading to the decider. Dalton Ayres defends the inside line into the hairpin, half the lap to go, and realistically, Jack, only a couple more overtaking chances.
Yeah, no, I think Scott's more sensible than to throw the kitchen sink at it, but he's going to be there or thereabouts for an opportunity to present itself through the chicane, that's for sure. Music to the ears of Oliver Gibson is the lack of noise, or the quietening of the noise from behind, isn't it? And he's going to go on to a potential race victory as long as he doesn't screw it up himself through 130 hours specifically. There's also a close battle between Carl Felvers and Joel Last just behind these two, but we'll focus on the two championship contenders as they head down towards the last couple of corners. Scott Bugner crawling all over the back of Elliot Dalton-Ayres. They go through 130R. Looks like the Ford actually did a little bit better than the BMW, although the BMW might have carried a couple of more miles an hour. But it's going to be Oliver Gibson who's going to be the star of this show, Andy.
Absolutely. First victory of the season for Oliver Gibson. Out of the final corner he will come. He will see the checkered flag and take another really popular and overdue victory here in the Cammus Simulation GTV3 Championship. Elliot Dalton-Ayres hangs on to second though, and that could be hugely significant for his championship hopes. Scott Bugner third, Joel Last fourth, Kyle Felvers in fifth position, Reese Bell, another really strong under the radar result for him. Nicky Taylor in seventh, Josh Martin stays eighth, ninth Ethan Hill, and Eric Axelson down in 10th, but I don't think that will be his dropped score. I think he still managed to score more points than he did at Monza round number 2, so Axelson will have to simply live with what has been a disappointing night tonight, with a top 10 finish only just salvaged from race number 2. But yeah, some really, really good stories out of that one. We covered the championship battle. Great to see Oliver Gibson get a race victory. I'm waiting for Lewis Edwards to confirm to me whether or not he has had a win. I know he had a pole position. I do remember that much. I want to say at Norris Ring last season in the touring cars, but I don't think he converted that into a race win. So if Oliver has won with us before, it's been a long time between drinks for him, and I am now getting it confirmed. Another new VRRC winner. They're coming thick and fast at the moment, Jack.
I was going to say, if you were wrong, Lewis would have been much quicker to correct you. That's how I know when I'm right when I'm saying something. But what I'm going to do is very quickly segue to an advert so that we can have a chat to our newest VRRC winner, Oliver Gibson.
Well, everyone, welcome back to the VRRC. The Cammus Simulation GTV3 Championship keeps on kicking it up a notch. Every week that goes by, this championship battle becomes more and more intense and more exciting for us to watch. And that second race here at Suzuka, absolutely proving the point. We will talk about the championship picture in a moment or two. But first, another first-time winner here at the VRRC. We've had a few drivers either getting their first victories, first podiums, or first wins for a long time this season. And we can add to that list of feel-good winners Oliver Gibson, who joins us now in the commentary box. And Oliver, a strong showing in qualifying earlier on today. Race 1 didn't necessarily go to plan, but you proved in that race there is nothing wrong with your pace. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Race 1, I don't know what happened. I think I just wasn't in the zone or something. I just kept making mistakes, and then I got stuck behind Reese for ages. But yeah, second race, I think I started on the outside, and it just there was like it's like parting the sea for turn 1. It was just a line straight down around the outside. So, and it was just holding my nerve for last 15 minutes, and it was quite nerve-wracking.
Certainly, I can imagine you were watching that gap coming down and down and down and down. Luckily, they started fighting behind you, but it has been one of those championships we've seen that if you can get out in clean air at the front of the field and you've got decent pace, you've got half a chance of staying there. You've spent a lot of the season in the midfield, so you'll have seen sort of first-hand how competitive it is. Has it been fun, though, out there racing these cars? They're tricky to drive, but the level of competition out there has certainly been fun to watch. Have you been enjoying it?
Oh, it's been so good. I don't know. I've never done a series where every race I've had a good battle. So it's been so fun, and finally to get a win as well is it's really special.
And we've had this conversation with a few drivers this season, but when you get that first podium or that first race win, it can really give you some confidence moving on into the next couple of rounds. Of course, only one more week of racing in this particular championship, but now you know you can win. Presumably, it would be nice for you to get another one before the season is out.
Yeah, it would be great if I could get another one, especially at Silverstone as well. Obviously, it's home track. I know it's home track for many as well, but yeah, I've never won at Silverstone in anything, so to get a win as well, there would be that would be really cool.
You've been one of our more popular drivers in the YouTube chat as well tonight, so I'm going to give you this opportunity to say hello or say thank you to anyone who's been supporting you, because it is really nice to see that support coming in through the social media channels. So who's out there cheering you on tonight, Oliver?
It's going to sound very like Lewis Hamilton, kind of thanking everyone at the factory, but I know my parents are watching, Dave is watching, Brian's watching, I think Jack's watching, so yeah, it's a big thank you to them for supporting and helping me with it all.
Nicely done, Oliver. Well, congratulations. Welcome to the winner's circle. I'm sure it won't be the last time that we have this chat, but big congratulations on that race victory, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Oliver Gibson then getting himself the race victory here at Suzuka. Right, from that story, Jack, to the other big story of that race, the championship battle. What a battle it was between two of our contenders, and you're able now to speak to one of them.
Yeah, Elliot Dalton Ayres. Wow, you needed that one, didn't you, after race 1? Congratulations on a massive second place. That must feel like a bit of a relief, if more than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we didn't have the pace tonight because race 1, everyone else was everyone else in the championship was just sailing away, but really needed that second place and to keep in the championship fight, because points are very precious now. So just need to get as many as possible, and that second place will definitely help me in the championship.
I was gonna say we've been talking about your evening. We've been talking about your season. You had a massive Istanbul, didn't you? That was amazing for you, and the most successful, I think, sort of points haul that we've had all season from one specific driver in a round. But since then, it's been a bit of a grind, hasn't it, for you in terms of picking up points here, there, and everywhere. And it's just a case of when you have one iffy round, it's not bad to get a 6th position or whatever you were in race 1, but then to pick up that podium, it's just gold dust.
Definitely is. I mean, it would be great if we could do Istanbul for the last round, but you know that's not going to happen. So just hopefully have a strong Silverstone. Going to definitely practice a lot to be the fastest or be within a tenth of whoever's the fastest, and just really go for it in Silverstone and try and win the championship, and it'd be my first. So yeah, that would be really good.
I was going to say one last question before we let you go and enjoy that podium. Silverstone, it's the full GP loop, of course. We've often done in the touring cars and stuff like that. We've often done the national circuit quite a lot here at VRRC. The full GP, though, do you prefer it, or is that something you're going to have to practice a bit more, or what's the thought process, especially in these cars?
I've never actually done the GP circuit in VRRC. I've only done the national, but I think maybe the bigger circuit will definitely be better for this car. I mean, with all the twisty turns, and hopefully it's a bit like Istanbul to rack in those points and to win the championship.
Well, good luck, Elliot. I'm sure you'll be putting in the practice. Silverstone's an awesome circuit. I can't wait for it. So good luck, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you next week at some point.
Thanks, Jack.
Nicely done. Elliot Dalton-Ayres then keeps his championship hopes alive heading to the Silverstone Showdown, the final round of the Cammus Simulation GTV3 Championship. One more driver to chat to, though, and it is another driver who will be hoping to lift the championship trophy come season's end. And Scott Bugner has survived what could easily have been a very bruising evening of racing, but actually have come out of that, Scott, with two really, really strong results, and that second race in particular, I'd say you stuck to your game plan. You weren't too aggressive, you were patient, and sure enough, the race came to you.
Maybe I found my new way of going through race 2. Yeah, it was lively, I must say. Alok was putting up a good defence, and that was getting really, really. I was watching Kyle, and I thought, oh no, just get past and see what we can do. And then Kyle, didn't, push me too hard. He was fair. Joel had a bit of a moment in front of me, and that was a Code Brown moment, I must say. But yeah, got through, and third place is, it's all I could have asked for, to be honest. It was, I could have, I don't know, if I wasn't going for the championship, I might have put a bit more of a fight up against Elliot in that second or last lap, but it wasn't worth it.
I was going to ask you what was going through your mind when you saw Joel having that big moment at the Degners. It probably wasn't broadcastable though. So, but what I will say is, those little moments that could swing either way, things that are out of your control. You must come across countless of those moments, particularly in the reverse grid races. We as commentators watch those and we think, well, they're the moments at which the championship could sort of tip one way or the other. How conscious are you of that when you're in the car? It's a reverse grid race. All hell is breaking loose around you. You're not really in control of your destiny there, are you? Does that realization hit you during the race, or is it after when you look back and think, blimey, I did well to get out of that?
A bit of both. I think it's, when you see, like Eric in that race as well, I think he just dropped a wheel on the curb at the first corner, and it could only be one sort of tank slapper or too many, and Joel could have collected him, and it could have caused chaos. But yeah, it's one of them things where you sort of take a deep breath really quickly, and just fingers crossed that you get through it. It didn't happen last week. We got caught up in the melee last week, and this week kind of come out of it on top, which is nice. And congratulations to Oliver as well. First win, well deserved. But it just means it's a big close fight for the last round at Silverstone.
It is. We're not going to spoil the points just yet, but I can tell you it is very tight. What's the game plan going into Silverstone? Because it is going to be super, super close. Of course, your teammate's still in the fight as well for this championship. How do you approach that final round differently? Do you approach that final round differently, or is that perhaps the wrong way to approach it? Do you just try and treat it like any other race?
Well, I owe him a couple of T-bones from the touring cars. But no, there is, even like tonight, we had a few team orders. We said whoever was quicker in that second race, we just go through, follow each other through and see what happens. My game plan was just to follow Joel in that second race and just, whenever he picked up a move, I'd do the same thing. But obviously he dropped the car. So, yeah, going into Silverstone, there might not be as much team orders. We're both now fighting for it. Let the best man win, and hopefully I come out on top.
Well, we can't wait for it, Scott, and we thank you for the show that you put on tonight. We've also decided that you are the recipient. We're going to give you your first trophy now. We can't give you the championship trophy yet because that's very much still hanging in the balance, but you will be the recipient of our Driver of the Round award for tonight because of that wonderful consistency under immense pressure as well, with the championship hanging in the balance as it is, and you managed to stick to the game plan and come through with what I would imagine is by far the highest score of the night. So, Scott, congratulations on that, and a little bit of silverware will be making its way to you now.
Thank you very much.
So Scott Bugner then ending the penultimate round of the championship with the trophy heading his way. The big question, though, is who is going to be taking the biggest trophy of them all, as well as the Cammus Sim Wheel after our Silverstone showdown. Well, let's put everyone out of their misery, shall we, Jack? This is how the championship will look. We are very much still looking at a four-way shootout. Remember, there will be in excess of 50 points still available. Drop scores will take a couple of people out of it. We're very much looking, though, at Scott Bugner, Joel Lask, Eric Axelson and Elliot Dalton-Ayres as the championship favourites. 12 points between them and just 4, Jack, between those top two, who just so happen to be teammates.
Yeah, and we just heard that Scott Bugner's saying that they're not going to bother with team orders or anything like that. So ignore the fact that they're teammates, ladies and gentlemen. They're just other drivers going at each other hammer and tongs. And Eric Axelson, Elliot Dalton-Ayres will have to mop up some pieces if anything does go wrong to either of those LB Motorsport crew. But it's going to be very exciting indeed. And that's not the only bit of silverware up for grabs. Remember, that 5th place does get that hour at VRRC, so there is still something to fight for 5th position. And that's equally close between Josh Martin, Kyle Felvers, now Oliver Gibson, and Nicky Taylor as well. 4 drivers in amongst it to crash into the top 5 and grab themselves one last prize. So, yeah, very, very interesting going into Silverstone, not only for the top spot, but for that 5th position as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 12 points covering the top 4. I mentioned Josh Martin earlier on, 8 points adrift of the championship lead going to the decider that he won a season ago. Well, Elliot Dalton-Ayres 12 points back, not that much further. So that could still very much go to any of those top 4. And as Jack said, plenty to fight for behind them as well. So that is how the championship will look then as we head to the final round at Silverstone. Remember, a week's time, we will be bringing you all of that action the 22nd of March from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. A great place for racing, that, Jack, and I really think that we are going to be treated to something quite special there, because there are plenty of places you can overtake, but it's plenty wide enough to run side by side. You've got those tarmac runoff areas to catch you as well, which normally I would not necessarily be all that pleased to see, but I think it might just allow those drivers, particularly fighting for a championship, to really lay it all on the line, and I think Silverstone, the best place for them to do that.
I just can't wait to see them going side by side through Abbey, to be honest. It's going to be sensational stuff. And yeah, I love the GP circuit. We've already said that we do a lot of the national circuit. For me, the national circuit, it's a bit frustrating, to be honest. I particularly get frustrated with one of the corners, the second corner. I can't remember what they call it on the national circuit. It's Maggots and Beckett's, I still think they call it. But it's incredibly frustrating. And when you're incredibly frustrated with 1 out of 4 corners, it ruins 1/4 of the track for you. So the GP circuit is brilliant. Can't wait for it. It's set up perfectly for these kind of cars. The drivers are all thriving and ready to go. So yeah, that's going to be sensational.
You can always tell when Jack has had some less than ideal real world experiences of a racetrack, because he speaks with a passion you don't hear from him at any other time. That's a fascinating insight into the way a racing driver's mind works. But yeah, certainly the Grand Prix circuit will put on a show in a week's time. You do not want to miss it. Now, what else is going on at the VRRC? As ever, busy behind the scenes. Lots of exciting stuff coming up. We've got our Time Attack series, which is still running. We are just about to move into our sort of phase 3 of the Time Attack series. I think the Formula 4 has been completed a couple of days ago, or is just about to finish. We will be moving into the there we go. End of this week it will conclude, so you've got another day or two to get your lap times in the Formula 4 car before switching to the F3 car around the Red Bull Ring. If hot lapping is your thing and you want to prove how quick you are, then from the 20th to the 31st of March is your opportunity to do so in a Formula 3 car before, on the 3rd of April, for a couple of weeks, we move into Formula 2, which I'm now realising is actually phases 2 and 3 of the Time Attack series, as opposed to 3 and 4. Anyway, the fun races as well continuing. We have had a radical race This week, it's the IndyCar that is taking centre stage next time, Tuesday the 21st of March. That's next Tuesday for a 15-minute qualifying session and 2 20-minute races, much the same format as we have for our Wednesday night races. If you're looking at dipping your toe into the water here at the VRRC, that's a great way to do it. Free entry to anyone who joins the server, and we will kick things off at around about 7:30 in the evening UK time, IndyCars at Road America. We've also got the truck racing special event. Now, that is due to kick off on the 29th of March, so a week after our GTV3 championship is concluded. We need to get your entries in if you want to get on the grid. Don't want to miss out on what is going to be a really fun 3 weeks of racing. So if you're interested in racing with us, do get signed up as soon as you can. You've got yourself only a day or so, I think, until the entry deadline is going to be upon us. So get those entries in if you want to join us on the grid at Donington Park. Also, our next championship, our proper championship, will be kicking off on the 26th of April. We're going back to touring cars, but touring cars that are perhaps a little bit more familiar to UK touring car fans. And as you can see, we've got a great variety, 6 different touring cars to choose from, a mix of front and rear wheel drive, and some of the very best racetracks that the UK has to offer, including the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, which will, for the second season in a row, host the championship deciding race again. Entry for that you can do through the Discord server here with the VRRC, and do register your interest as soon as you can. That is not all that's going on, though, at the VRRC. Off the track, Jack, plenty of ways for you to get involved as well.
Yeah, the VRRC Centre is the new home of race and sim driver coaching, both on and offline. You can come down to the centre and get your coaching in person, or we can have Rich or whoever else you want actually do it over the simulator, basically, and go through all the data and do all that. But why listen to me? Because I normally butcher it every week anyway, and I normally bring Rich in to save me, so why not bring him in at the beginning? Rich, I'm going to throw you under the bus now and ask you to have a chat to everybody about the VRRC Centre. Off you go.
Thanks, Jack. Much
You're welcome.
appreciated, mate. Yeah, so so the simulation centre's up and running. It's going really well. We've got 4 high-end simulators, all with direct drive steering, all with hydraulic pedals, high-end PCs running them, sequential and paddle shifts on all of them as well, linked together, so we can get 4 drivers on the same track at the same time. All of that, we have an engineer station as well that records all the race data. So lots of information, lots of ways that we can help people improve their driving. But we've also got our full motion simulator on top of that as well, which is linked into those other 4 simulators. So full motion, virtual reality, and we've also got a motion flight simulator as well now. So we just keep adding more things. It's just not good enough just to have the 4 pro sims in here. We now want a motion race sim and a motion flight sim at the same time.
Well, why not? Why wouldn't you? So if you are thinking of getting your pilot's license as well as your driving license, then you might as well head on down to VRRC Sim Centre by all means, which of course is a couple of the prizes that we've got in this championship. So a few of the drivers that have been racing here tonight will of course be going down in a couple of weeks' time regardless. But if you don't want to just the driver coaching, then there's plenty of other ways you can enjoy the Sim Centre, of course. There's the watch-alongs that we've been doing for the Formula 1, isn't there, Rich?
Yeah. So we're doing that for not every Formula 1 and not every British touring car race, but quite a few of them. We're just doing watch parties where people can come along, watch the racing on our UHD 70-inch TV that we've got here, and have a few snacks and drinks, do some sim racing, do some flight, do some VR gaming. So it's just a big playpen, really, isn't it? It's great. It's a fantastic atmosphere too.
It is indeed, yeah. We all had the pleasure of going down there a couple of weeks ago, and it is just basically a fantastic playpen for big kids, essentially, isn't it? But there is plenty of in-depth stuff that you can do to improve your driving as well. So by all means, get in touch.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I was in the zone then, and I felt like I was watching a series of professionally put together adverts for the VRRC. Then, well done, guys.
You know what you were watching.
Well, yes. Anyway, the next Formula 1 race it's this weekend, isn't it? 19th of March for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. I think that's just about everything that we have to tell you. Yes, there isn't another slide coming. That's good news. We've remembered everything for once. The only thing we have to tell you is that you do not want to miss the final round of the Cammus Simulation GTV3 Championship in a week's time. Silverstone Grand Prix circuit will play host to a 4-way championship showdown with a host of other drivers looking to try and end their season on a high. We've seen so many get really, really good results this season, and there is still 2 more opportunities for other drivers to get themselves onto that podium as well. Same time, same place for the kickoff of our final round of the championship. We hope you'll join us once again. Thank you everyone for putting up with our slight technical issues tonight as well. We'll hopefully not have a return of those next week, because we want to bring you every second of the action from Silverstone. I'm sure we will see you all there. For now, though, for myself, Jack, Lewis, Rich, and the rest of the team here at the VRRC, thank you very, very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Woo!